And welcome back. It's Local Matters. I'm Danny Kramer. We have the county library system, Trish Hull, who is actually the manager of Magna, and you're my book reviewer.
That's right.
What a job.
It's great.
This is so much fun. These are readers' choice. We ask people to read these and then
vote on them.
Feedback on it.
You bet.
Okay, let's dive into some more because we got so many. We're not going to get to all that we wanted to talk about. Camel Bookmobile by Marcia Hamilton. Tell me about this one.
It's fiction, but it reads like nonfiction, and I think it's because she spent a lot of time in Africa, so the attitudes are correct. She's a New York woman who goes to Africa to help the disadvantaged by bringing books to them. Mm-hmm. And there really are camel librarians that people bring books to these little villages on camels.
They bring them on camels?
Yeah, that's actually a true thing.
Okay.
But it's interesting because she has to open her eyes to a perspective. She gets to this one village where the elders don't think she's so wonderful because they're afraid of books and their children reading because they're afraid it will destroy the oral tradition of their village, where all of the stories and the history has been passed down orally and they've all had to learn these stories. And with books, they're afraid that will go away and the children won't learn those stories and won't be able to pass them down. It's hard to argue with that because that really did happen in history.
I can
so,
imagine.
you know, you have to understand. Plus, they're bringing in ideas that they're afraid will change their way of life, which again is a true thing. And so she has to become aware of some new ideas and new things. And there's a whole lot of cultural information you learn, some really interesting things. That opened my eyes, and I think it opened the eyes. Plus, the people in Africa had to learn. The one guy who was in charge of the bookmobile told her when she goes back, she'll go back to her evening gowns and swimming pools and revolving door boyfriends because he's watched American TV. He knows what it's like.
Got it.
And so there's a lot of misconceptions on all sides.
Speaking of Africa, we're not going to talk about this. Did you ever read The Power of One?
Yeah.
Oprah, I just finished that. Oh,
yeah, powerful.
Wonderful. Lois on the Loose by Lois Price.
True story. She's a British woman, worked for BBC, and just got tired of her job. She loved riding her motorcycle and decided she wanted to ride a motorcycle from Alaska to the tip of Argentina by herself.
Oh, my.
250cc bike. And to me, it's fascinating. She decides she wants to do this. She does it. The adventures along the way, the people she meets, but she keeps this positive attitude as she goes through every country. Just fascinating, and really, again, it was one of those books I was just going to browse through to be able to talk about, and I started reading it, and I couldn't put it down. It isn't boring and long. She doesn't go into great detail everywhere she is. She flips through the whole 20,000 miles pretty quickly. But there's some fun stories in there, and bears, for instance, she's told about bears in Africa, and she's Alaska. She's halfway through Alaska, and she still hasn't seen a bear, and she's starting to think, oh, this is just something they rate to get tourists here. And all of a sudden, she sees a bear, and she's shocked, and she gets off her bike, and she takes pictures of the bear, and she goes another few miles and sees another bear. And then she sees another bear. And after about the 60th bear, she's like, oh, another bear. Who cares? And so it's just fun. Her observations of the world and America, she's traveling this 20,000 miles.
Oh, nice. Nice. Lois Price, Lois on the Loose. One woman, one motorcycle, 20,000 miles across the Americas. Okay, we can go to the website. You know, we're doing these rather rapidly today, but
little capsules.
I think we're going to whet the thirst of many people. Society of S, Susan Hubbard. I didn't get a chance to look at this one.
It's kind of interesting. Vampire books are very popular right now in fiction, and this is a vampire book, but it's about a young girl who doesn't know she's a vampire until she gets in her late teens, and it's how her life, she's been led a very sheltered life. Her father keeps her away from people. He homeschools her. He works in the house. She really has no friends, no contact with the outside world. And these vampires are not your typical Anne Rice vampires or any kind. They don't eat people, feed off people. They have synthetic blood. They're vegetarians. They want to help the world.
Vegetarian vampires.
Yes, it's very interesting.
There's a novel idea.
It is. But it's actually a very touching story, the relationships in it, and there is an evil vampire who's trying to do some bad things. But it's a very touching story, well written, and kind of a twist on the vampire story.
Speaking of Anne Rice, she has written 2 wonderful books. In fact, I just heard NPR the other day talking about her new one. I've got to get it. She's not in the vampire genre anymore.
Oh, maybe we'll have to talk about that next time.
We will. We'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
Terry Person's Blind Spot.
This is an FBI agent. Bernadette St. Clair has a special talent. She was a twin, and her twin had that special connection that twins have sometime where they can kind of read each other's minds. They took it a step further and were able to read through each other's eyes and see through each other's eyes. Her twin, when she's a senior in high school, is driving a car, and just as she is hit by another car, Bernadette is seeing through her eyes. And some weird thing happens, and instead of seeing through a twin's eyes, she can now see through the man who killed her twin's eyes. And it leaves her with this ability, and she can now see through killers' eyes. So she joins the FBI, and she has this special ability, which is kind of unique, and the FBI doesn't quite know what to do with her, and she has a bit of an attitude. She's kind of a flawed character, which is great. I really like that about her. However, sometimes it works, and she can solve crimes well, but again, she's seeing through the killer's eyes, so she can't see the killer. She just sees what he sees. And that's very disturbing, plus it isn't always enough to find the killer, and there have been some mistakes made. So she's up in Minnesota now. She's sort of been shipped out in the boonies a bit, and she's feeling a little put upon. And she meets this other FBI agent who specifically requested her, and he kind of believes in her abilities. And so I think it's the beginning of a series. It's going to be a great series because there's an incredible twist at the end I'm not even going to mention, but you read the end and you just want to go, there's got to be another book.
Got it. It's called Blind Spot. We're going to have to wind things up, but quickly, Point of Entry and the Spellman Files.
Okay,
You
Point
would
of
suggest
Entry,
both of these?
President of the United States, President of Colombia, a little bit of romance, a lot of terrorism, bomb in the U.S., and the only person that can help save is the President of Colombia, who's a woman. Kind of fun. It's a great story, a lot of action and adventure, and a little romance thrown in.
Now, these Reader's Choice books will be up on the website. Again,
They
how do
are.
you go to that? Just
www.slco.lib.ut.us.
Okay,
It's on your
don't-
library card if you have one.
Oh, good. And if you don't have a library card, you have how many different locations?
18 in the county.
Alrighty. And don't forget about those downloads of the audio books, with
They're
an
great.
MP3 player. Oh,
They're terrific.
I can't wait to get through the show and go home and do that.
You bet.
I'm going to have you back forever.
Okay.
Trish Hull is with the Magna Library. I'm Danny Kramer. Local Matters will wind things up and give some things away in just a moment.